Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Renito, Chief Scientist with the Institute for Digital Transformation. I want to welcome you to Digital Dialogue, where different industry experts discuss digital transformation topics and issues that are of concern to all businesses. Whether you are already a digital enterprise, or on your journey, or still trying to figure out what that all means, we know you'll find something here for you. Remember, as a LinkedIn Live session, this is your opportunity to interact with these experts. Post your comments and questions in chat for a full interactive experience. Welcome to Digital Dialogue.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for coming to LinkedIn Live today for the Digital Dialogue. We appreciate your presence. And today we're going to talk about customer experience at the heart of business. And with me today are Jim Lyoob, who is the Chief Customer Officer for 𝗗𝐸𝐞𝐵 Global Services, Stacy Sherman, who is the founder and CEO of Doing CX Right, and Nate Brown, Senior Director of CX at Arise and the co-founder of CX Accelerator. Welcome, everybody. Nice to have you. Thanks for coming today.
Hello. Welcome.
Don't be afraid of the comments, attendees. Jump in there if you have questions or comments as we go. Please do avail yourself of the comments. And right now, I'm just going to have our guests give a little bit more information about them. I just told you basically their job titles and who they work for. So Stacy, let's start with you. Tell us more about Doing CX Right.
Yes, hello. So glad to be here. So I am a marketing and customer experience strategist and practitioner. I've been spending a lot of time lately as a keynote speaker, journalist, author, and host of the Doing CX Right podcast, and really known for my heart and science framework that produces profitable and brand loyal advocates fueled by an empowered workforce. So I'm excited today to talk about the heart and science of it all.
Great, thank you. I love that, the heart and science. That's wonderful. And Jim, why don't you tell us more about 𝗗𝐸𝐞 Global Services and what your role is there? Oops, we lost your audio, Jim. Yeah, let's flip over to Nate and we'll come back to you, okay?
I promise it was there. Hey, everybody. My name's Nate Brown. I'm over here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a student of CX work. I absolutely love customer experience work. It's the best puzzle in the world that we get to solve as we help these organizations push towards really meaningful objectives. I'm a competitive pickleball player. I'm a competitive disc golfer. I love my kiddos. I got 2 of those over here in Middle Tennessee. We got our chickens and we're doing a little sustainability farm. So we're having an experience out here for sure. But definitely my sweet spot for voice of customer and employee experience and really trying to create the cultural foundation to make these CX initiatives successful. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Roy.
Okay,
Hey, Roy, I think that we can make another session about CX and the lessons for pickleball. I'm in for that.
I've got the
there you
article.
go.
Yes.
Okay. Are you a pickleball player, Jim?
I am not.
Okay, you're off the broadcast. No. tell us a little bit more about what you do. Thanks.
So again, first of all, batteries went dead in my headset, so I apologize. It's not good. So my name is Jim Lyoob. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at 𝗗𝐸𝐞 Global Services. We're a global contact center doing a lot of cool things, disruptors. What's unique about me is I started my career as an agent, and now I'm a CX officer, and I'm really passionate about actually the customer journey and what's happening in our industry. And I'm really excited about today's panel. I think we're going to have some fun today.
Agreed.
I'm sure that we are. Knowing all of you, I'm sure that we're going to have a little bit of fun, and knowing the CX crowd in general. And just a little brief note about me. I am a fellow of the Institute for Digital Transformation and have been known to say a thing or two about customer experience.
Indeed.
And I do have to mention this, Nate. I remember the first time you came up to me at a meeting in Tennessee and said, "Could you tell me more about customer experience?"
I still need your knowledge, Roy.
I must have said the right thing.
You
Anyway,
did. You set me on a good path, my friend.
all right. So let's get started with a little bit of discussion here. So the goal to improve customer experience appears every place. I usually do a little wind up for my IT side on CIO priorities for the year. And in 2023, customer experience is coming up more and more and more. Corporate mission statements, it's on almost everybody's corporate mission statement. And do you think there's still a lot of checkbox ticking going on, or has the concept of customer experience really made an impact throughout companies? And why or why not? Nate, I'm going to start with you.
What a great question to be asking. I mean, there's a lot of tick boxing going on, regardless of what type of change management we're talking about. And as we look at the research, change management in general is having a rough time in our organizations right now. If we look at culture change, digital transformation initiatives, as this group knows very well, I mean, we're talking of a failure rate of upwards of like 80 to 90% for these change initiatives. Customer experience is even harder. It's even harder to embed. So why is that? Well, in my opinion, it's because it's so much founded in the culture, the cultural aspects of what we're trying to do. We cannot programize CX. We cannot put it over here as a function or a team and expect it to accomplish the objectives. Because what is the objective? We're trying to change the hearts and minds of our customers and enhance their perceptions of us to improve loyalty, to earn share of wallet, to have them bring people into a relationship with us. So I mean, that we're talking about some big C culture stuff here, and we've got to put that into the hearts and minds of our employees. So we have to give this work away. We've got to put it into every function, every department, every mind of every employee, so that they can understand how they play a role in this CX revolution. It's not a program. It's not an initiative. There's not some kind of finish line over here. So this work is really different in that regard. And it's really hard for leaders to see that, to honor that, to have the realization of, wow, this is not something we can shove into a quarter or to a year and experiment with this idea, this concept of CX. No, because it's a cultural revolution that's happening over time and just keeps getting better and better.
Thanks, Nate. And I think we're going to come back to a couple of the themes that you mentioned in that answer. Stacy, what do you think about that? Is it box ticking? Is it what's going on?
I believe that we've come very far where companies are no longer getting educated on what is CX. I think that we've come far on that. We're no longer telling companies it's important. They know that. Where there's progress to be made is the how and the commitment and the investments. And I see the biggest detriment to it all that hasn't changed to this very minute are silos, internal silos. I don't care if it's small companies or big. The silos are hurting the companies from taking the CX forward. And so I think that the checkboxing is coming from the fact that companies aren't really seeing it. And I'll bring up one term that helps break it, which is the journey mapping practice. People are not understanding that they tell me, well, we did it a year or two ago and they've done it. I'm like, oh, well, that is not enough. That is not the answer. Yeah, that's a checkbox. So bottom line, we've made a lot of progress. There's a lot more to be gained in actually doing it.
Absolutely. Jim, what do you think's going on?
Yeah, so I think there's still a lot of checkbox mentality out there. And what's more importantly to be looking at these companies who are selling generalized AI, based in these companies that are buying these generalized AI companies, their whole strategy is based on algorithms without even, without what Stacy said, without even understanding the how, right? That's the problem. So like these big companies I see are getting this topic mining, which is checkbox, right? And then they're tagging him with sentiment. And then they're trying to use these machine learnings that, by the way, the person who's building it probably found a YouTube video on it, right? And it's machine learning that's really not machine learning, it's human intelligence. And when you get generalized topic mining, the problem is you have no domain expertise. And that's what I think the problem comes into, because you could have positive and negative sentiment with this machine learning with no domain expertise. And I use this all the time. Charlie Brown, one of my favorite characters growing up, good grief. Depending on how that machine was coded, it's going to be positive or negative, right? So that's what I look at. So I think the other thing that people look at from data, right, is they don't actually understand how to train the data. So companies can avoid all of this if they're in this checkbox by one thing. The product should be built on your goals and objectives to meet your needs, not the company selling the need is. That's the biggest thing I can look at.
Well, we certainly agree there. And Frank's got a question. What is journey mapping? Who wants to take that one? That's a big topic, but could probably give Frank some information about journey mapping. Stacy, you want to take it?
Yeah, I can start because I initiated that word, that action. So journey mapping is where you are literally walking in the customer's shoes from beginning to end. So how do they learn, buy, get, pay, use, get help, customer service as we know it? And it's the act of bringing all of your company departments together to map out the customer experience. But here is the game changer. The game changer is once you do that internally, you then need to go validate what you designed and defined as that customer experience and validate it with real customers and understand the gaps. So just doing it internally is only half the picture. You've got to bring the outside in. So there's a lot to say about journey mapping, but it's the art of actually walking in your customer's shoes and making sure you define those experiences and how you want them to be at every interaction point. I'll pause.
Thank you for mentioning the fact that you better have the customer involved with customer experience. Otherwise, it's just experience, you know?
Yes. And by the way, one more just add on. This is another topic, probably an hour, another day. But companies also fail to do the internal employee journey mapping. And so that's another topic, but it's customer and your work teams and really defining the experiences through those actions and best practices.
Excellent. And we have a little follow-up question from Chidi, who's asking, are there tools you can recommend to carry out journey mapping? And maybe all of you can chime in on that one. Nate, do you have a favorite?
Go ahead.
Yeah, still on the journey mapping question there? Or did we just morph to something else?
Yes. No, on the tools for journey mapping. Are there tools you can recommend?
I love using Visme is a wonderful tool for this. I mean, what you're trying to ultimately do here, you're representing the reality of the customer, not from your biased perspective. You're not, and this is a good accelerator, but you're not slapping sticky notes on the wall and everybody's saying, oh yeah, I think the customer does this here. That's a hypothesis map. That's a fun exercise. That's not a journey map. Whatever you can use, Visio's fine to get started. There's a lot of specific, software applications for journey mapping itself, and those can be helpful too for some really heavy journey mapping. But anything where you can have stages, milestones, you can list out the expectations and the friction points associated with those milestones, and then start to represent effective data that says, yeah, this is what loyalty looks like here. In the customer service area, it might be that brilliant customer effort score question. In the implementation area, it might be that ease of business score, but that gives us that ability to see, are we meeting our objectives? Are we setting expectations correctly upstream in this journey? And then are we doing our jobs well? Are we serving the customer well throughout the entire thing and earning the right to grow our customer base at the end of this? Yes or no?
Excellent. Jim, did you want to add to that at all?
What I would add is we use a bunch of different tools, but the first thing I think we start with when we do any type of mapping for a customer, you're sitting on the largest data set on the planet, which is your interactions with your customers. So the first thing we do is analyze 100,000 interactions.
Good.
And drop them into buckets, people, process, and technology. And then you can actually build your journey mapping and look at all of those things. That's the biggest recommendation I would give. Instead of sitting in a boardroom, which I know some people do with the sticky notes. I think it's so funny, Dave. Well, you already have all the data. Let's just analyze the data and start there.
Yeah. And I don't bash it, because I love when folks are forcing
love it.
executives to get into the mindset of their customer, and to do that in any way, I think it is cool. But it's not a true journey map. What you just said is awesome, Jim.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, because what you both said is so right, but also, not but, for the listeners, that sometimes the technology can get in your way. Sometimes, am I doing it right, makes you not start. And so I want to bring it back to, don't worry about doing it perfect. Don't worry if you don't have an expert such as me or any of us here in the room with you. Just bring people to a whiteboard, virtual or in person. And the mere act that you have each department, whether it's finance in the bill payment stage, or it's the awareness stage and you've got marketing in the room, the other beauty part is that it breaks the silos. And by having people work together and collaborate on the journey, it's so powerful. So I just want to say, when you're more advanced, take advantage of the tools and bring in the data, and all that is so important, but don't let that stop you from starting.
Great advice. The perfect is the enemy of the good, right? To at least get started, or as ITIL says, start where you are.
Yeah.
And so let's continue the conversation with a couple of points around, what do you think, what do you wish, as in your expertise, as in your practices, what do you wish more businesses understood about customer experience that would help them do a better job with all the aspects of their customer relationships? And I'll start with you, Stacy, this time.
Okay, so I'm not going to say journey mapping again. I'm not saying it. So I'll move on to the next thing. So a lot of companies, what they understand, they are starting to get customer feedback more now than ever. They are relying on surveys. Okay, that's not the only way. What I really want to stress and emphasize here is closing the loop. Just because you ask, just because you are listening to customer service calls and getting insights, which I hope you're doing that, doesn't mean that the problems get fixed. So I want to say that closing the loop, where you're taking the feedback, however you get it, and there's a lot of vehicles to do that and a lot of sources, make sure that you are actually prioritizing the pain points, fixing them, and telling the customer what you did. Telling the employees, let's say there's product teams and you're getting feedback on these features are not working, or I wish you had XYZ, bringing that internal, working with the internal teams to make it happen, getting it on your map, and letting the customers know you heard them. So I just want to say closing the loop, and there's a lot of pieces to that, but that's missed often in companies. And I'll give you one other one. The other one is onboarding. I think companies are doing better at that, and we can spend a whole hour on customer onboarding. You only get one chance to make a great first impression. We know that. The biggest miss is outboarding. Both customers when they leave and employees. And you have to remember, they are alumni. And a lot of times companies are not getting the feedback of why. Why are they leaving? What that experience is. So I have a lot more to say on that, but I just wanted to add another component. Thank you.
Good points. Good points. Thank you, Stacy. Jim?
Yeah, so I agree with Stacy. I think it happens more often than not, by the way. They're not using anything with the data. If you look at the definition of how I believe this whole CX is all about, the true measure of the customer experience is the emotional response or the perception of the journey the customer took from the time I looked at it, from awareness, until the time I bought it or decided not to buy it. And I'll give you an example. I bought my wife a brand new car for Christmas. You would think this would be the happiest part of my life. Of course, you get the survey. There was a part that was loose. I filled out the survey. And in the survey, I literally said, Stacy, you'll get a kick out of this. I will give you a $100 gift card if you actually do anything with this survey. Of course, I bashed them, right? And they did nothing with it. I then bring it to the dealer. I say, listen, this part's loose on my wife's car. It's brand new, 10 miles on it. He says, well, you could just tape it. I could. Oh. I said, I could, right? I said, but isn't that your job? Again, I left, got another survey. I bash again another survey. And again says, no one's doing anything with this data. So I agree with you that if you're going to waste my time to fill out some stupid survey, which I'm not a big survey fan, there's 3 reasons you fill them out. 1, you went above and beyond, physically impossible. 2, you pissed me off like just happened and I bashed you. Or 3, you bribed me with a gift card that it's going to make me fill it out. So what I try to tell people is, let's use multiple metrics. Like, let's use customer lifetime value. Let's use sentiment score. Let's use the interaction quality scores. See, I think the future of CX is going to be a single customer view of how I perceived, right, that interaction. And I'm going to look at that customer data to give me a single stream of what happened from buying the experience to servicing the experience to after you serviced it. That's my opinion.
By the way, Jim, I love your example. And I want to say, going back to company silos, here's the problem. Department A will send you a survey and the Department 2 will send you a survey and they didn't talk. Yep. So now you got multiple surveys. So,
and by the way, this person lost out $100 both times. All they had to do was respond.
Unbelievable.
Amazing. Nate, do you have
I
say after that?
Horrifying voice of customer silo stories that I won't jump into, but what a classic example. I mean, so the thing I'd love to offer is some advice here, and knowing our audience, the digital dialogue, incredible digital transformation folks in here, and folks who are really setting the stage for this next era of the customer experience. I mean, I heard a statistic recently that 80% of our interactions with brands are happening over digital channels. So I want you to know, hey, this isn't some magic thing that you haven't already been doing. It's not some secret fellowship over here. It's not like that at all. It's just doing the right thing for your employees and for your customers. And it's serving them really well. So I want to encourage you in the fact that you've probably been doing a lot of these things already. And so the opportunity is just to continue to enhance that momentum and to embrace customer centricity culturally as an organization, and to get some clarity of where it is that you're moving together, to have a formulated idea of the ideal customer experience, and to be educating people. And so where does that education flow from? It's really the brand promise. It's the reason that you all started your organization in the first place. You can't copy and paste anybody else's customer experience into yours. It doesn't work. And we had a joke running for years, the folks on this panel of the Southwest and the Apples, incredible companies, but everybody was just running over there and trying to copy and paste this customer experience concept into their culture and into their context. It doesn't happen. So take your brand promise and think about, how can we protect this? How can we make sure that we stay true to this promise that we're putting out into the world, to our customers, and have people want to defend it, inspire them with that desire. What we're doing is important. We're making a difference in the lives of our customers. This is worth doing. And then rallying people around that, inspiring them to care enough to then, as they go through their day, they have customer interactions of their own. They make decisions of their own. They're thinking about that ideal customer experience for you, for your organization, and they're working together towards that. It's the best thing that you can do. And then number 2 is just think about expectations. I mean, this work is so much rooted in the concept of expectations, where we set them and our ability to deliver on them. I mean, it's fascinating to me how departmentalized our experiences become. We're up here, upstream in the journey. We're making a promise. We're making a commitment to our customers. And just a couple stages down in the journey, it's either forgotten or made irrelevant. We no longer work hard to deliver on that. So doing things like this great voice of customer engine, to use that Gene Bliss term, doing things like journey mapping, doing things like bringing people together in a room and just understanding the state of the customer and how you're navigating with them. I love the metaphor of the guide by Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. The customer is the hero of the story. So then what do we get to be? How are we collecting ourselves together? We're the guide. So we're understanding the journey that the customer's navigating, and we're asking ourselves, how can we be the best guide possible? What attributes are there of an effective guide? Are you extremely knowledgeable? Are you really proactive? Are you really fun and exciting? Like, different cultures and different customer interactions are going to answer this question very differently. But for you, what does that brand promise look like? And how can you help your employees to become the guide, to embody that metaphor so that you all can together deliver on that ideal customer experience that you've worked on?
I always kind of like the idea of the customer experience equation, which is that it's expectations minus reality.
Ooh.
Right? It's what the customer expects and then what they actually encounter.
Yep.
And that's where the experience is, if it's one way or the other. If the reality actually exceeds their expectations, well, we know how that works.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet their expectations, we also know how that works. And it's finding those things out, I think. And somebody commented that they're surprised that you have not mentioned the need to monitor social channels. Well, we could go into a long discussion of how omni-channel works and how important that social monitoring is to customer experience, because it's all part of voice of the customer. But yeah, I for one certainly agree that it's your social channel. You're going to get a lot of feedback, positive and negative, and you better be out there listening, because the conversation about you is going on whether you're participating or not. So you better be there to listen and to participate. It's a very good idea.
Yeah, I would just add on to that. Like, when I talk about interactions, it's all. I agree. Just don't mention the word social. It's all interactions.
Yeah.
Yep, very true.
I'd like
So,
to add. I'd like to add a
ahead, Susan.
comment to social. This is where, again, the silos happen. We're not talking about just human. We've got the data silos, and so that's what companies really have to intentionally break. And it's the silo thing again. So we do have an opportunity with the structured and unstructured data and bringing it together.
Great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
By the way,
If you
it's
don't know
August 8th. I want to let you know my wife's car is still not fixed. I forgot to say that.
Oh, geez.
August 8th.
Just
Still
tape it, Jim.
Still haven't fixed it.
Just tape it. Wow. But what's the old joke about WD-40 and duct tape, right? So Cheaty's got another comment here. Is for B2B businesses that offer services like training, where your customers are departments in organizations, how can one really gauge the customer experience? It's most basic. Most times feedback goes to the company and not to the facilitator.
Ooh, yeah, there's a great
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
Who wants to grab that one?
I'll jump on that if I could. Matt Barron is a great evangelist for this idea of colleagues, internal stakeholders, creating a great experience for them. I love the idea of ease of business. And Leslie Ophelhaven and Jenny Dempsey, that you might have been there, Roy. I mean, years ago, they had this concept, this philosophy of free to serve, free to help. Are we making sure that our people can be the guide? We're freeing them up with the right tools, the right information, the right capability, good process, each other, the type of culture where they actually want to help one another towards helping the customer. Are those attributes in place? And a measurement of that in many cases is ease of business. Is it easy for you to serve the customer in the way that you would want to, in the way that we say, that we claim that our culture is supporting? And getting an idea of that. So employee pulse surveys, there's all kinds of great questions you can ask to get that very idea of how free to serve are your people.
And so many times, I'm just going to speak from a personal perspective here. So many times when the information goes back to the company, and we can talk about surveys, is also a comment by Frank that a lack of acknowledgement on surveys. And I can recall doing some survey analysis on one was big survey. And in most cases, you'll get a 2%, 3% people who will actually fill in the comments, the comment box. They'll take that free form. And in this case, it was 25% of people did. I had 38 pages of comments that printed out of that. And they were fascinating. And that allowed me to do so much more analysis on the survey results than I otherwise would have been able to. So you really have to pay attention to the stuff, and then you have to communicate it. And we published the survey results, and that was part of it. But certainly you have to make sure that your communication is going on. And we could talk for another whole session about the relationship between employee experience and customer experience and how all of that works together. And that's an important topic as well. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about a little bit of research here. There was an article in Entrepreneur in 2021 that pointed out some interesting research, I think. McKinsey found that more than 2/3 of all buying experiences are based on how customers feel they're treated by a specific business. Well, yeah, that makes sense. We should know that if we don't. Temkin research, Bruce Temkin said that about half of customers are more likely to make future impulsive purchases after a personalized service experience. They develop an affinity with the organization and enhances their connection, and then they're more likely to make just impulse buys. Are there other ways that you think customer experience can contribute to the bottom line? And Jim, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think upsell design, just by understanding your customer's journey, will help any organization provide recommendations. I mean, it's more relatable to a customer, hence easy decision choices, right? So I have two. So two examples. So one, I fly to India sometimes, right? So think about when I fly to India. If I'm on a 30-hour flight, which we love or hate, right? I've done it a couple of times, and the airlines, I can look at if they knew what I purchased in one airport, going to the next one, you can get a messaging. And that's a decent one, right? Like, maybe you bought a neck pillow or whatever it was. But more importantly, let me tell you about my great experience. So Nate knows this because I see Nate in Vegas a lot, which I go to Vegas a lot. MGM probably has the best personalization, hyper-personalization I've ever seen in my life. So when you talk about hyper-personalization, right, that's when a company makes you feel special. Right? And they'll do anything for you to treat you as an individual. So let me give you the example. When I fly to Vegas, probably sharing way too much information on this podcast. Hope my boss is listening. But when I land in Vegas, I get a response from my host and my MGM. Mr. Ali, thank you. Welcome to Vegas. I put Coke Zero in your room for yourself, Sprite Zero for your wife.
Oh, gosh.
I also did this. I mean, you want to talk about personalization? This is why I go to MGM, because they treat me like an individual. And when they also know I like magic shows, way too much information. When a certain performer is out there that they've known I've seen several times, they will send me a text message or a pop-up or an email that says, hey, we know you were at this, want to give you a free ticket to this. And that's what I look at. I mean, that's why I go to those places all the time, because they treat me as an individual versus just blanking me with stuff I would never use or never eat, right? They know all my preferences. They've obviously documented it very well because they know how to talk to me as an individual.
And speaking of Matt Barron, I was having an exchange with some folks on X one day. Before it was X, it was something else, I think, rhymed with Critter. And it was about personalization, and I said that there's a difference between personalization and personalization, right? Where you aggregate people's preferences into a group and treat everybody in the group as if they're monolithic part of that group, which they're not. They're people. It's amazing how that works.
Absolutely.
So moving the topic along a little bit, we've talked about journey mapping. We've talked about some of the ways that you can measure things. Thank you for mentioning some of those metrics. Customer effort score, difficulty with doing business, all of those things, those experience measurements, and don't do death by survey. Please don't do that. But how important is it for customer experience plans to bring a customer all the way through from the time they discover your brand and hopefully guiding them? Thank you, Nate, for the guide term. Guiding them all the way through to becoming a brand advocate. That's really what you want. You want to embellish your brand and publicize your brand through the voices of your customers in every way possible. Reviews, social media comments, recommendations to their friends, all of those things, right? So do you think is that really an important facet of customer experience to get them all the way through that journey? And Nate, I'm going to start with you this time.
Well, it kind of seems like the obvious yes, but I think it is a little deeper as we think about it, because it requires so much time and energy and investment for the company to navigate the journey all the way to this point that we're talking about, Roy. In many ways, it's unsustainable. So is the return on investment there? We have to think about that. Even though it feels right, we have to consider. Let me tell you what I'm thinking, and I might stumble around on this a little bit because this is fresh thinking here, and a lot of this is inspired by Belonging to the Brand by Mark Schaefer, which I've just been absolutely floored by. He's the same person that wrote Marketing Rebellion, which I really do believe changed the state of marketing just a few years ago. And now he's doing it again for us as CX professionals. He's talking about how community is the pinnacle here. I mean, people are so isolated. People are so alone in general. I mean, we just had the huge epidemic of loneliness Surgeon General report come out. There's so much research coming out on this idea of people just feel disconnected. So where are we going to earn loyalty? Well, we're going to earn it by connecting people to our brand in meaningful ways, giving them that little sense of identity, that little bit of personalization that Jim is talking about, and even more, we're giving them each other. I was wrestling with my wife, not physically, but metaphorically speaking, we were trying to figure out what to do with our limited resources as a family. And she made this brilliant statement. She just goes, "It's so hard to know what to do with our life, our time, and our money." And I feel like that the order of that is essential here. Because life, it's like, does this company support what I support in my life? Do they have the same values that I care about, the same mission as they think about making the world a better place? Because that takes a lot of different forms. Is it the same view that I would have as I invest time and energy and money to them? Are they using that to make our community a better place in the way that I would want? And then, yeah, time. They're not wasting my time. They're not having me jump through a bunch of hoops. Our time is so valuable. They can't be wasting it by giving me countless surveys and never doing anything with it, by having me go through all these digital hoops that are meaningless when I just want to talk to someone, as an example. And then money is still important. The value has to be there. But the culmination of all of this to me is connecting people in a meaningful brand community, where these are people that care about the brand promise together. We're inviting our customers into it, and we're co-creating with them. Like, as an example, UL, making the world a safer place. We're innovating on that brand promise as a company, and then as a group of customers that are doing this in incredible ways. And then UL is bringing that in and helping to educate, helping to spread that innovation and that wisdom. It's so galvanizing when customers are helping to educate and even support each other, as the gaming industry has been doing for years in Discord and Reddit, helping gamers to have incredible experiences in the game and not being reliant on traditional support channels to make that happen. They support each other because they love the game. Let's cause people to love our company and our brand promise as much as gamers love games, and create good community mechanisms around that. That's how you earn brand advocates, to me.
That's great, Nate. And I don't know if you can make customers love you as much as gamers love games, but it's a worthy goal, sir. It's a worthy goal. How much do you love it? Do you love it as much as pickleball? I guess would be it.
That I can't answer that question right now. I'm emotionally hijacked.
It's tough. It's tough. It says, but in our highly polarized society, how do you avoid creating affinity with one group, thereby alienating another? This is something that I wrestle with a lot. I wrestle with this.
Here's my answer to that. You don't. You don't. There are so many companies and so many tribes of customers out into the world. We should be attracting our customers, that belong to us, that believe what we believe, because that's where loyalty is going to come from.
Yep.
If we try to be all things to all people, we cannot and will not earn loyalty there. We need to take a bold stance. We need to stand for something and help to cultivate that through the meaningful purpose of our business. The people that belong with us, both as employees and customers, we should earn them through that process by being authentic to ourselves. You cannot be all things to all people.
Thank you. Just to broaden it out, and Stacy, I'm going to start here with you. We have to start to wind the conversation down a little bit. But what would you like businesses to understand about the power of putting customer experience front and center?
There's so much I want to say. All right, narrow it down. What do I want them to know? I would say that while companies are so focused on the numbers, the financials, the science, the data, do not forget the heart of business. Do not forget that it's people. People don't leave companies. They don't leave buildings. They leave bosses. They leave challenging work environments. And so there's a focus just on what's the bottom line? How many sales did you bring? How many leads did you close? And that is not going to work in the post-pandemic world we live in. There's a lot of impacts that we're still feeling. COVID had physical impacts. The mental aspects are coming. We're not even fully there yet in what those ramifications are. So you can't lead by ignoring that. And so bring the human heart to business. I also want to say what Nate was talking about, community, and Mark Schaefer, a friend of mine too. On my podcast, he talked about community. And the thing that he talked about and that I actually did with my team in a company is created a community, an employer that I worked for. We created a community for customer service agents, peer-to-peer support. It's not just your headquarters staff.
Love it.
So don't forget, that's just one of many, many examples of how you bring the heart to business. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Stacy. Jim, can you add a few thoughts to that?
The only thought I'd ask, I'll quote my president and CEO. I've been with the guy for over 30 years. So Stacy, you're right. People don't leave jobs. They stay with the people they find that do a great job. He says, focus on the people. The numbers will take care of themselves. So, I mean, that's pretty much the biggest thing. And last but not least, I will say, remember, customer feedback is a gold mine of insights. People spend millions of dollars, as we talked about my dilemma today with these surveys, right? Don't miss on that. I'm not saying stop surveys, but man, you're living on the largest data set in the planet. Use the people to identify what you can do better, and everything else will take care of itself.
I'm going to contribute a thought here that's relevant to that and to what we talked about, silos, etc. And a point that a lot of people miss is what that customer data can do for you in ways that you haven't even thought about.
Yep.
I was in a meeting with the CEO of a large company that's involved in customer experience in the contact center world, and I won't mention them, but he had a question about all that dark data that sits, all those recorded calls that sit there not being analyzed, and hoping that through some of the AI products that company was developing, they'd be able to do a much better job of analyzing all of that data. And he said, how useful to us would it be for our sales team to understand how many times our customers mention our competitors and whether that was in a positive or negative way. So you can mine the data across the entire organization. It's going to mean different things to different areas of the business. Break those silos. Thank you, Stacy, for bringing that up a bunch today. And get the information where it needs to be. That's all part of the customer experience. as we mentioned at the top of the show, it's not a group, it's not a program, it's not a project. It has to transfer through your entire organization and be right at the heart of your business, which was our topic today. So my great thanks to Stacy Sherman from Doing CX Right, Jim Lyoob from 𝐒𝐩𝐞𝐫𝐬 Global Services, and Nate Brown, my old buddy from Arise and the founder of CX Accelerator. Thank you all so much for being here today. Great discussion. Thank you. And thanks to the Institute for Digital Transformation for having these dialogues. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you for joining our digital dialogue. Be sure to join our next digital dialogue on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.